Alrighty, y'all. Hello. We're taking a look at car payments today and the crazy car payment extravaganza, you could call it, that's going on here in North America, especially I would say the U.S., maybe Canada as well. I'm not exactly sure. But car payments have just been getting higher and higher and higher. Now, I like cars. I've been a car enthusiast my whole life. And I understand that sometimes you might want to buy a cool car or something that you have to finance and you unfortunately have a car payment. But that kind of thing has gotten out of control in recent years, and we're going to be taking a look at some proof of that today. Now, I'm also going to try and learn a little bit how it works in other countries. Videos, a little bit of a focus on European countries versus the U.S., just to see how they compare, because I find it interesting. I also tend to learn a lot, and I imagine on this topic, it's probably going to differ in some ways. I realize everyone's different, and everyone, might want to spend their money their own way, and that's totally fine. Unfortunately, this can turn into a really bad pattern, and having these, cars that people really can't afford, quite frankly, can really get you into some financial trouble.
Rihanna approved on this 2022 Chevy Malibu. Miss Rihanna put $12,000 down. Miss Rihanna, how much are you paying a month?
I paid about $976 for 84 months currently.
These predatory car loans are all too common here in the U.S. I mean, look at this. Look at those terms for a low-quality car like a Chevy Malibu. $70-something thousand after all that for a car with no resale and low quality? That's crazy.
Care that I have a $700 car note. I don't care because I'm in this car a lot, right? Think about it. We commute to work, to the gym, to the stores. We're in this car 1-2 hours every day. Best believe that I'm going to drive something that I like and that I'm comfortable in. And I don't care about that Apple CarPlay, whatever everybody's obsessed with. What I care about is that my windows roll up and down, that I don't have any check engine lights, and that my brakes aren't screeching. Because having an unreliable car is inconvenient.
Okay, so I'm going to break this down. I see both ways here. So for one, she's definitely, at least, from what I think, she's exposing herself as American. And I know many people who's viewing this right now will realize that because she mentions how reliant on a car she is and how much time per day she spends in a car. That's very American trait. Now, I know some people might spend a lot of time in vehicles elsewhere also, but of course, some people don't. Some people don't even own cars that watch me. Of course, to me, that is completely a foreign concept because I own many cars and you depend on them here. That's just how the infrastructure is. I basically can't get anywhere if I don't have a car. Now, also, she says, I get it. She doesn't want something unreliable and, crappy and always breaking down and not having even creature comforts like windows, that don't roll down. Maybe the AC doesn't work, so you have to have windows at least, right? And if those don't work, I get it. Life becomes miserable pretty quick. Now, unfortunately, we're at a crazy time that, it wasn't really exactly like this 10, 15, 20 years ago, but now we're at a time where new cars are just so expensive, and it doesn't matter what manufacturer it is. They're just more and more expensive than they ever have been. I can't believe it sometimes. Everyone might have their own viewpoint, but I tend to think, I'd rather have an older vehicle. That's why I have multiple older vehicles. They're very cheap, I think, to keep running, right? If they break, you fix them. They're relatively common enough cars to where they're not expensive to fix or hard to find parts for. And it feels nice having a title to all these cars, that I paid cash for. I don't have huge car loans or, $700, $800, $1,000 a month car. Now, I'm sure the windows will work on a new car, but here's the problem. We're also in an era, at least here in the U.S., where newer cars are becoming so crazy. There's so many recalls on like every major manufacturer, it seems like. There's cars, having rod knocks and blowing their engines within the first year ownership. It's kind of crazy. So I don't know about having an unreliable car. She doesn't want to have that. Well, there's no guarantee anymore that the new car that also costs an arm and a leg each month is going to be reliable. That's the scary part.
Trust me, I've had my handful of cash cars. I've been in hoopties. It was all that I could afford back then. Car troubles were the worst. So yeah, I'll pay my $700 car note. And best believe, yes, I am going to buy the maintenance package because my car needs to be on schedule for its maintenance. And listen, the real flex is buying a nice car cash, right?
So I wonder if that means she bought like an extended warranty or something. That's kind of a shame too, because that probably costs a lot. Because you don't need to buy something to maintain your car, right? She wants to maintain it on time. Well, just buy it and with the standard warranty and maintain it on time. right?
But we don't all have
don't
it like
know.
that, but we can afford a little, $700 payment. And I'm cool with that. Y'all are gonna come for me, but y'all have fun on the side of the road. No, I'm just kidding.
My car payment. I
Okay.
built a 2023 Tahoe that I got in October of 2023. And my payments were higher than I thought. I thought they
Of
were going to be
course.
around 800, which was fine. I mean, it's more than I've ever paid in my life.
Yeah, Tahoes used to be like the American superhero. Everyone you knew had Tahoes and Suburbans and Durangos and Ford Expeditions, whatever, right? Like those were the big American SUVs, but they were attainable, right? They were maybe always a little pricey, but they were attainable. Now they're just so expensive, right? It's not the age of new Tahoes are $30,000 anymore. Now they're $70,000 or $80,000 and climbing. And guess what? The new Tahoes are blowing their engines when they're brand new. You can't make this stuff up. And check this out for reference. Here's a used 2023 Tahoe, because now a 23 Tahoe would be 2 years old. Look at this, used $60,000. These things are outrageous, and because it's used, your APR, your percentage is going to be higher, and it's just going to be flat out unaffordable for most people. I don't know who even buys these. The American car market is freaking cooked.
But it ended up being $1,100 for my Tahoe. I just have an LT.
Oh my God.
Nothing. I didn't add anything extra to it.
See, an LT is a lower trim level as well. That's not anywhere near top trim, right? It's not like she got an LTZ or a High Country, which are really expensive, fully loaded versions. It's just an LT, which should be pretty, standard mid-trim at best. $1,100 a month. That is crazy. That's like a house payment or a mortgage payment.
My husband a year ago got a 2024 truck somehow, brand new.
Oh God, that wasn't
Chevy
cheap.
2500 HD. Really nice truck. His truck is only $765 a month.
Okay, now that truck should have been probably more expensive than the Tahoe, unless that truck was literally a work truck spec. Trucks are even more expensive. I'm trying to think of how he would have had it. Now $760 a month or whatever it was. That's not cheap either, but it's cheaper than her Tahoe payment. He either had to have put a lot down, which costs a lot of money, or his loan is probably for 84. Some of the loans I'm hearing are going out to 96 months or more here in the U.S. That is crazy. We're talking about years and years of loans with, interest too, right? How much you really paying for that car after all that time? That's kind of crazy.
I don't understand how his is cheaper than mine. But then we also build a house, and we have a mortgage of $2,400 a month.
How are these people affording this? $2,400 mortgage. Holy crap. 2 cars that are almost $2,000. And that's just car payments. We're not talking about the cost of fuel, right? These are good cars that are not great on fuel either. The fuel mileage is going to be bad. The maintenance might be a nightmare because, again, newer GM products, I love American cars. I love GM, but, we're talking older. The new ones are just not it. Also, insurance. Insurance, I will maybe look up later. I'm thinking that that's at an all-time high for new cars as well. So many costs that go into this that we're not even talking about. American work culture also gets wrapped into this. This is why you hear Americans working 2 jobs, maybe 3 jobs, or they're working their 1 job, but they work 6 days a week, 10-hour days, 12-hour days. They become obsessed with work because they have to, because this lifestyle is so expensive, right? It's like spend, and then worry about money. It seems like a weird scenario, right? It's like this one thing after another, and then they wonder why they're stressed about money and they're working so hard, and then their whole year passes by, and it's like, what have you done but work? And basically not been able to save up money because you're spending so much. It might work for some people, but I don't envy it. And I know people from other countries would probably be mind blown by it because I'm assuming that's not as common. So if you Google what's the average car payment for Americans in the fourth quarter of 24, so it's about 6 months ago, the average car payment in the U.S. was $742. This is just the average. This could be for, across all vehicle types, $742. And $525 a month payments for used vehicles. So that's talking about maybe you're buying a car that's 9 years old or 7 years old, and people are still having to finance these, and they're still paying $500, maybe even $600 a month. It says that those are pretty much on the low end. The other reports indicate higher payments every month. For example, the February 2025 Cox Automotive / Moody's Analytics New Vehicle Affordability Index listed the average monthly car payment as $755 in January of 25. Take a look at the average loan amounts, new vehicles, $41,000. I just can't believe that. I mean, I grew up, obviously in the 90s, I was too young to even know about money or cars or anything. But by, let's say the mid 2000s, like 2004, 2006, those kinds of years, doesn't feel like that long ago. $41,000 was an expensive car back then. I remember looking at Corvettes and stuff, right? Because, we all see movies and play video games as kids, and yeah, like Corvettes, I remember were like $45,000, I think, back then. And that was an expensive car, right? But you could go out and get brand new, trucks for like 28 or 30. You could get a brand new simple sedan, like a compact car with a 4-cylinder. You can get those for 16, 20 grand all day. Now the average new car, we're talking like cheap cars, is still almost $40,000. It's almost unheard of to get a car for under 30 brand new. I just think that's crazy to think about. Used vehicles, almost $30,000 still. And these are including vehicles that are 5 years old, 6 years old, 7 years old. They're still going for, $25,000, $30,000. Want a used truck, they're still going for like $50,000. It's crazy. Again, trucks used to cost 25 to maybe 35,000, 40,000 tops for like a fully loaded 3,500 dually. Now those new trucks are going for $70,000 to $100,000. It seems. It's absolutely crazy. Then you have interest rates, right? Interest rates are usually always over 10%, usually approaching 13 or 14%. I've read for used vehicles. Of course, new vehicles are anywhere from 6 to 7 to 8%. And then people wonder why they're making payments, and it doesn't seem to be, bringing the bottom line down. It just goes to interest. That's why you have these car loans that are really long. Car loans used to be 2, 3, maybe 4 years on the top side. Now it's very normal for people to be getting these 8 or 9 year car loans, which is crazy to think about. Then if we compare, you look up the same thing for Europeans. Here's something interesting to note. It says that the average cost of owning a car per month for a European varies greatly. Of course, different regions, different countries, of course, right? Different cars, yada, yada. But it says the average cost of ownership for a car is around 616 euros per month. But here's the thing. That's less than what we just saw for the U.S. number, but it's really less than when you compare what it actually entails. The U.S. number was just the monthly car payment. Didn't include all the other stuff that costs of owning a car, right? This 616 euros per month actually includes the cost of the vehicle, the taxes, the insurance, the maintenance, the fuel. So then you see that's much more of a reasonable number, and it doesn't sound like the average Europeans are out here, flexing their $1,000 a month car payment. That doesn't include all that other stuff added onto it as well. It says some countries, it could be as low as 344 euros per month, probably, primarily in Eastern Europe, where the costs are slightly cheaper. And some of the factors in this are depreciation, taxes, and VAT, fuel expenses, maintenance and repair costs, and insurance. Switzerland has the highest, 117 euros per month, and Sweden has the lowest. It's pretty interesting, at 39 euros per month. I have to say it's very reasonable as well, because insurance, I think, judging from that, insurance seems to be a lot more here in the U.S. Go figure. Also, comparing to how you buy the car, it seems to be a lot different in Europe as well. Usually you're supposed to put at least 20% down. That basically never happens here in the U.S. A rule is a maximum loan term of 4 years. See, maximum 4 years. That's what it was 20 years ago here. Now they're doing 7, 8, 9 year loans like nothing. So yeah, they do the max in 4 years in Europe as the norm to avoid excessive interest payments. Makes perfect sense. Additionally, the rule suggests buying a car that costs no more than 10% of your monthly income. Now, if people lived by that here, I think they'd be in a lot less trouble, because that does sound like a smart way to do it. I feel like a lot of people here are buying cars that are 50% of their income.
Grace, what's the highest payment you've ever seen?
$1,784.
Oh my God.
Demetrius, what's the highest payment you've ever seen?
Oh, like $2,100.
Sheesh. Roy, what's the highest car payment you've ever seen?
It was $1,958.
Jesus. Leslie, what's the highest payment you've seen?
1,400.
Hey guys, what's the highest payment y'all have ever seen?
24.
March?
3,200.
Jesus.
Yeah.
My
Riley,
God, what are these people
what's the highest
driving?
car payment you've seen?
I wouldn't have a clue because I'm a marketing manager.
Patrick,
Third,
what's the highest payment you've seen?
highest payment I've seen, probably like 1,900.
My God, man.
Oh, what's the
Can you comprehend this? Look, if you could do this, more power to you. I just can't comprehend. Like, the cost of living is so crazy in this country, and people have $1,800, $2,000 car payments, even $1,000 car payments. I just can't comprehend it. For cars, for newer cars that have just gone, in my opinion, have gone so far down in quality.
highest car payment you've ever seen?
2,500 and you can be next.
That's right. That sounds right. Those are mortgages and not car payments. Yes, accurate. It's freaky. Not me refusing to have a car payment over $300. I mean, you're smart. I wouldn't want one anywhere near $1,000 a month or more. I don't know how they do it. 3,200, bro, driving a Rocket.
All right. So you got into a bad deal, unfortunately, in August of 2024. You bought a 2024 Kia Forte. APR is about 29%.
Oh my God.
Your payments are $819 a month. You owe $25,000. You want us to buy it? Is that what you want us to do?
The purchase was pretty new, so I know like it's probably not possible, but like whatever you feel is best, I'll say.
How much is your insurance a month?
So my insurance a month is like $450.
400.
Okay. Holy crap. I don't know how this would have happened. I actually feel horrible for this person that they got into this. So a Kia Forte, that's not an expensive car. It's like an entry-level Kia, at least here in the U.S. Kia, not a very, longevity-minded brand over here. Lots of problems, not good resale. And the fact that they're paying $819 a month, they have 29% interest. That means when they're paying that $819 a month, barely any of it's paying off the balance. $450 a month in insurance, not $450 a year, $450 a month just for insurance. So they're paying, $1,200 plus a month for a Kia Forte.
$150 a month.
Oh my God, that's terrible.
Yeah. So the reason why I asked that is everybody who buys a car or currently has a car should account for insurance being part of an expense for the vehicle. And since the Kia Fortes, I don't know if you remember the Kia Boys. I'm pretty sure the 2024. Do you have the turnkey or do you have the push start?
The turnkey.
Got you. So the reason why the insurance is so expensive is because they'll be easily stolen. So that's why insurance companies. And I even know
that's the
insurance
thing.
companies now that don't even insure them anymore. So it's really hard to.
I don't know if that's a thing in other countries. Comment if it is, but here there's been a huge kind of controversy with, I think it was Kia and Hyundai, where they're very easy to steal. Like there's some software problem where you can just like use a phone or a USB cord or something. I can't remember because I didn't look it up. I just heard the stories, but you could pretty easily steal these. And so insurance companies don't want to insure them. That's hence, I guess, makes sense for me why that insurance price is so high on a relatively cheap car. So that video goes on. It just gets worse and worse. She is in what seems just like a deep well of financial trouble, and it's terrible to hear, and this happens all too often to a lot of Americans right now. Personal finance needs to be taught at schools, 100%. 29%, what do they finance with, a MasterCard? Probably, because 29% is just an unbelievable interest rate. It's terrible beyond belief. But there's a lot of predatory dealers out there and a lot of predatory loans. So they can get people with bad credit, because you know how much I hate the credit system here. But they get people with bad credit and, not really, they get them into cars that they can't afford. And then it ends up being horrible scenarios like this. If you fall for $1,200 a month for a Kia, you probably shouldn't be driving. I mean, yeah, the biggest thing is I don't know how she got herself into that in the first place, but after this, you would hope that she learns a lesson and never falls for something like this again.
Down.
Zero.
Zero. How much are you guys paying per month?
580.
580
580. How long are you guys financing for?
for 287 months.
All right.
Oh my
Congratulations for the
God.
Mercedes C300.
Thank you.
How much did you guys put down?
I don't know if these are real. I've seen a couple videos where it's obscene amounts. This one's actually, again, I don't think this is great, but $580 a month is reasonable considering we've seen videos with much higher. But, you know, 0 down, $580 a month. Okay, sounds like doable. But then it's for 287 months. That is actually crazy. Because, like, when you're going to, you know, new car dealers, even new cars, you know, like I said, you're seeing some 72, 84, even 96 months. But 287 months, like, what is that, like 20 years? I'm not even going to do the math on that. I'm not exactly sure if these are real. I mean, I don't know. Honestly, there's some crazy stuff going on out there and scams, and God knows what's possible in this country. I have no idea. But people really, if they really want a Mercedes, I guess there you go. You can basically pay 6 figures over the course of, 15, 20 years, whatever it is, for a C-Class, for a C300.
I got all my bills set up on auto pay, so I don't have to worry about no bills not being paid, right? So something tells me to go check my car because I want to see how much I have paid on it since I had got it like last year, March, April, February, March, somewhere around that time when I had got my BMW X5. So I checked my Capital One, which is, who I got my van through, and I'm like, okay, we almost halfway there, almost done. But I signed in to check my BMW, and it said I only paid $5,000.
Oh.
I'm like, no, I'm being scammed. Because not only am I on auto pay, but I'm paying let me see.
$2,000
I'm paying
a month.
$19.93, which is hell of a lot, right? I know. That was the stupidest thing I ever done. But
$2,000 a month.
I'm paying $19.93 a month for my BMW X5. And y'all telling me that since last year of March, I only paid $5,000 towards my car?
Oh.
So I'm on chat like, y'all can have this thing back. Because y'all ain't about to scam me no more. I'm not about to pay another year of $19.93 a month.
Oh, my God.
And it seemed like it's not going towards nothing but interest.
So this is crazy because, this looked like it was a slightly used. So it's like newer, but it's slightly used. BMWs, at least here in the U.S., is going to have a horrible drop. Like the depreciation is going to be, off the roof, right? And, she has a balance of $100,000, which is crazy. And she's made all these payments, she said, for over a year for $2,000 a month. But if you notice, over that time, let's say 12 months, times 12, that's $24,000 she spent. But only just under $6,000 went to the balance, which was $100,000 to begin with. Do you see how much of a nightmare that is? She's going to be paying this thing, it seems like, forever. This is how this can happen. This is how they get you if you're not careful. And this is why I just tend to try and, you don't keep up with the Joneses. Don't impress people you don't know. At the end of the day, I don't think anyone cares what you drive. Drive something that you enjoy, but really drive something that is reasonable and does what you need it to, right? I drive cheap cars that I really like, and they're not new and flashy, but you know what? They don't cost me much. I just have to maintain them and buy fuel and pay insurance on them all, which is relatively affordable. And, that's bad enough, right? They still cost you money, but at least it's something I can afford. These kind of car payments, and then she has to buy fuel, then she has to buy insurance, and maintenance, right? X5M, that's still going to have some maintenance, I'm sure. I'm sure it takes premium fuel. Like, the costs are unbelievable and nauseating almost. Really just exploded and taken over here in the U.S. I think the U.S. might have been always like that, at least in the modern era, the last 30 or 40 years, maybe compared to other places. But I think even so, that has just exploded exponentially in the last 20 years. I think social media is part of it. I think, different generations, like people just want to compete with their neighbors and friends, and it becomes this vicious cycle financially, and can get people that should have been well off in a lot of trouble, and it may take years to correct. All right, now I'm going to pull up a clip or two of Europeans talking about the same kind of thing, and go figure, it is actually very hard to find clips of Europeans talking about car payments or complaining about them because, as I would imagine, this isn't a huge issue in other countries like it is here, where you have average people that are buying things they can't afford and having, trouble bringing food to the table, but they have their $1,200 a month, car that they can show off.
Did you know that 47% of people and families in the US have an SUV truck? And it's funny because you'll hear them say something like, oh, it's to carry my boat, or it's to help my family travel around the country, and they've literally got one kid in the back of their car. I mean, who needs 7 or 8 seats just for one child? But in all seriousness, the reason I'm saying this is because the biggest payments and the biggest monthly expense you're going to be paying is your house and your car. And I don't want this to happen to people in the UK. I don't want us to get bright-eyed when we see a new 24 plate, which is happening quite a lot at the moment. I'm seeing these new cars flying around everywhere, but then I've got people complaining that they can't afford things when they've got this brand new car. I mean, you've got to look at the big expenses, because although cutting back on coffee, cutting back on going out once a week, cutting back on eating out once a week, that might help you, but you've also got to dive deeper into your bigger expenses, like your rent, where you live in.
I think he's right here, for sure.
Do you really need that car? These are the real big things that are going to make a massive impact and actually going to move the needle with your finances. So when
we're in a crazy spot, at least in the US, when you do have people that actually have the expensive house or the expensive car or both, but then they are literally cost cutting on everything else, and they're eating, ramen noodles and skipping out on this, that, and whatever else. But hey, at least they have the nice car to show off to their friends, and at least they have the nice house to, host once a year parties, because they can't afford to host anymore. He's right. You got to look at the big expenses first, and is the small stuff going to add up when you already have big bills that are too much? So I advise, don't take my advice, but I'm saying I advise other countries not to copy the U.S. Consumerism lifestyle. It could be a very slippery slope. And I think overall, it's one of those things, like having a car payment, it's not the end of the world. It's just they've gotten so crazy. And, I think if you can buy a reasonable car that does, the job and is semi-reliable, if you can swing buying that cash, that's the best option. Now, of course, if you can't do that, I understand that. I do wish, you got to do research, and also it's just hard. I understand. Like gone are the days where you could go out and finance a new car. Maybe you put a couple grand down and you have a new car, and it's simple, right? So, a little 4-cylinder manual transmission, roll up windows, like easy, right? Those are the cars I like and are so hard to find here in the US. And non-existent brand new, by the way. But, gone are the days where you could get a car like that, and, the car was only $16,000, $17,000 brand new. So you had cheap payments, you could get a new car for $170 a month. So it was actually affordable, and it was something that people could work towards and do. We just don't have cheap cars here anymore. There are no cheap, small diesel cars like I see that you guys still have in Europe and all these different options. We don't have it. It's all big cars, big trucks, big SUVs, and big payments, big bills, big repair bills. It's very, very crazy, and it's honestly weird to see how much it shifted and how fast it shifted from even 15 years ago to now. It's like a different world. This only scratches the surface. There is so many videos like this out there and information. I would love to revisit this, maybe even more in depth at another time, but that kind of covers a basis of what people are struggling with here in the US. Very high car payments, very high cost of cars, and the quality has gone down. And at the same time, it seems like people are still a little bit more cautious, I would imagine, in Europe and probably other countries as well. Maybe people watching from Australia, New Zealand, you can chime in on this, how new car buying and, loan amounts and lengths and what people are willing to take on average. If you can weigh in on this in the comments, that'd be great. But yeah, it looks like in Europe, people are much more conservative with spending, and no one's getting huge 9-year car loans for new cars and paying $100,000 in interest and all this stuff. It's scary. But I'm glad to hear that not everyone's doing that. I think we need to start really educating and trying to rethink how that works here in the U.S. so a bunch of people don't get in trouble, because I don't know what some of these people are going to do long term when they have cars that they just can't get out of, they can't sell, and they can't afford. It's a pretty scary situation. I would love to hear your thoughts down in the comments. Maybe it's not as bad as it seems. I would love to hear your opinion on it. I appreciate you watching, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one. My name is Ian. You're watching IWrocker. Until next time, y'all. Catch you later.